All right, it is 12:03. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And the first thing that I would like to do is to welcome everybody once again officially and thank you for joining us in this meeting. We do have some introductions, and if you have never joined us before, if you would take 5 seconds and just say your name and what your interest is, please. And we'll start with Alan.
Hi, I'm Alan Grinstead. I am owner, along with my wife Debbie, of Sozo, located at 123 West Lockerman.
Jed, you're up.
I'm Jed Hatfield with Collision Parking. We're the firm that's been selected to help review and develop the downtown parking program.
Tom Smith. You're muted, Tom. Press your space bar and hold it. All right, we're going to move on and we're going to say hi to Cody. Cody, introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. My name is Cody and I own and operate Agape Body Piercings on Bradford.
Dave Hugg.
Good morning. I'm Dave Hugg from the City of Dover Planning Department.
Steve Mulheim.
Hi, Steve Mulheim in Pasadena, California with Old Pasadena Management District.
Thank you, Steve. Chris. You're muted, Chris.
Chris Hankins, Colonial Parking. Hello, everybody.
All right, other Chris.
Chris Robacher, property owner and business owner in downtown Dover.
Thank you, Chris. Norman.
Good morning, Norman Ortiz with Colonial Parking.
Mr. Petrosky.
Joe Petrosky, property owner, 1 West Lockerman Street.
Tina.
Hi, I'm Tina Bradbury with the Downtown Dover Partnership.
Noel.
Hi, Noel Rodriguez, Business Relations Director for the Cloud Geeks.
Bo.
Bo Zebley, former president of KCAR, former president of Delaware Association of Realtors, former downtown.
I've been having something for them for like 3 days now, right?
Mute yourself, please, if you're not speaking.
I think you probably know.
I formerly worked downtown, and I am concerned with downtown Dover.
Thank you, Bo.
In a
Cameron.
non-official capacity.
Cameron.
Hi, my name's Cameron Llewellyn. I own Tidemark Construction at 117 West Reed, and my wife and I own My Roots and My Roots Styling Gallery at 9 West Lockerman.
Officer Avalese.
Officer Aviles with the Community Policing Department at City of Dover.
Aviles. One of these days, I'm actually going to pronounce that correct.
It's all good.
Amanda already introduced herself as Dover Post and the News Journal. Steve, would you introduce yourself?
25.
Steve Ottinger, Fixed Route Transportation Planner for Kent County, Delaware Transit Corporation, Division of Delta.
And Miss Deb Grinstead, would you introduce yourself?
She may be on a call. I just muted her and asked her to unmute. I think she's on a call.
All right, so she is the proprietor of Sozo housing down on the other side of Lockerman from me. That's everybody on the call today. Thank you for your introductions. January meeting minutes. Diane, can you share the screen and just put them up there so those that haven't had an opportunity to see them can, and I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Anyone?
So moved. Dave Hugg.
Moved by Dave Hugg. Do I have a second?
Second, Tom Smith.
Thank you, Tom. Moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. For the record, the minutes moved, second, and passed. Next on our agenda, a brief update on the current parking process, development of comprehensive parking solution. Diane, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Okay, I'm still in the midst of sharing screens and update on the parking you asked for. Is that right?
Yes, agenda item bullet point number 3.
Okay, so we have made great progress over the last several months. We've talked with a lot of merchants one-on-one. We've done a lot of email communications. We have a parking daily update, or at least after every meeting, updates on the Downtown Dover website for the parking. If you go to visit Downtown Dover and then parking, you'll find updates. We are continually in conversations with merchants, property owners to come up with ideas, come up with their input, and to address and include them in a solution. We've talked with Steve Mulheim. I've talked with Steve from Old Pasadena pretty extensively over the last couple of weeks, and he's offered to come today. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But and Steve, thanks for joining us. I know it's what, 8 o'clock time.
Glass for me.
So some of the other things in mind, we plan to do a survey to merchants and get broader public input beyond merchants as well. And so that we have a draft of that survey, and I anticipate within about 2 weeks that will go out. We do hold meetings once a month, the third Wednesday of every month at noon. Todd, what am I forgetting?
I don't know that you're forgetting anything, Diane. Thank you for that update. I would just like to add just a few thoughts to that, and that is we are always having the conversation. The conversation is ongoing, and we are hearing and listening to all comments, trying to come up with a solution that is acceptable and beneficial to everyone involved, all the stakeholders involved. And we have at least one person who has sent in written communication, and that's Diana, and we will make sure that Diana Welsh, her written communication is heard today. We have Councilman Ralph Taylor, who just joined the call with us as well. Hi, Councilman Taylor. And so we will read her letter here in a little bit once we get into the discussion to make sure her voice is heard. Tina, yes, ma'am.
For the current parking, I wanted to just let everybody know why it's on record here. We are having some issues with people still parking on street for the snow. And since there's going to be more snow this evening, if everybody can I just wanted to put that in there under current. Make sure that you move your vehicles lots to adhere to be plowed and properly done. And so the police department will now have.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Do we want to, Steve, do you want to speak now, or would you like to listen to some of the discussion points and add comments later, or both?
I have an hour free, so whatever you think is going to be the best use of that time, I'm happy to listen to discussion and then jump in. Whatever is going to work best for your meeting.
Well, let me just enlighten some of those who have just joined, and that is, in our efforts, we have discovered Old Pasadena as being not exactly the same, but a similar type of area within Pasadena. It's the downtown area, and we've discovered some. If you would, please mute yourself. We've done, whoever that is, I think it's Chris Rohrabacher. Thank you, Chris. We've discovered Old Pasadena, and Old Pasadena was a downtown type area, and in an article that we've read, Old Pasadena implemented some parking meters, created what's called a parking benefit district, and has seen, maybe not because of, but in spite of, has seen increased revenues for their merchants, increased property taxes, which means more merchants are opening up. In other words, has seen success. And their parking benefit district is where they control the revenues that come in and are able to spend that money on the area that is collecting that revenue. So we've heard some concerns as we've shared Old Pasadena's story. We've heard some concerns that Old Pasadena and Dover are not comparable. And so we invited Steve, we invited Steve to join us today, and he graciously obliged and can offer his experience and wisdom as to an area that has already seen this happen. In other words, we're not reinventing the wheel. He's here to share. And Steve, if you just give us, maybe a couple minutes, and then as the discussion heats up, which inevitably it will, then we'll allow you to maybe some questions be directed to you and you'll be able to answer them.
Sure, absolutely. Well, if it makes everybody feel any better at all, when parking meters were proposed to go in old Pasadena, this is early 90s that this discussion started. It was a very hotly debated topic then as well for us. So I don't think in that instance any place is very different. It's a tough thing for some people to look at. There was discussion that nobody's going to come downtown anymore once they have to pay for parking. What we discovered after installation was that people enjoyed the additional ease of parking downtown when there was more available. We had an issue with the street spaces being taken up by store owners and store employees who obviously would be parked there all day long. So we weren't seeing the turnover of those spaces for our consumer base. And that was a main objective of the installation of meters. What turned the conversation significantly was the proposal that the meter revenue would stay in the district. It would not go into the general fund. It would be used for streetscapes projects to beautify the area and create a nicer space for our merchants. And initially, it was about, I think, a year after the meters went in, the city worked with the organization that existed at the time to take bond funds out. So there was a $2 million bond drawn against future revenue within the parking meter district, and that was put into a streetscapes plan. So that there was a big shift all at once in the aesthetics of the area, and people were seeing some of the payback of putting the meters in. And we did see a great deal more turnover at the street, and the conversation about how much easier it was to find parking. We also had a couple of parking garages as well. But there were a couple of things happening at the same time. So I certainly can't say putting parking meters in made everything different. This is 94. There was a major development that was opening at the time. They happened to have the first national tenant that was on our main street opening at the time. There was also a movie theater that was opening at the same time. So it was kind of, convergence of a number of things that I think really lifted it up. But the parking meters making those street spaces available on a more continual turnover certainly helped with everything else that was going on at the time. We are about 22 blocks altogether. We started with parking meters just on the main strip, and then some years later expanded to the full district. We are about 300 first floor pedestrian oriented businesses. We now have probably about 10,000 residents that are in the area, as well as about 1,200 upstairs businesses, offices, that type of thing. We generate this was pre-COVID, about $350 million a year in annual sales. The parking revenue, the net after the expenses of managing the meters is taken out, we're looking at somewhere around $1.8 million to $2 million that goes annually into streetscapes projects and other expenses for the bid. So it certainly has made a significant and ongoing difference in what we're able to do in streetscapes projects. That's kind of a quick bubble. Happy to answer questions as we go along or as maybe pertinent to your discussion.
Thank you very much, Steve. I have a question for you. And so we are like you, but we're much smaller than you. And one of our biggest concerns right now is safety. And so we have a significant vagrancy, for lack of a better word, panhandling, just homeless situations, people in need, and some of the opposition we've seen to the parking is that, hey, why are we barking up the parking meter tree when we need to address safety? That's why people don't come down, and they don't not come down because they can't find a place to park. They don't come down because of fear. And one of the things that we have discussed several times is that by implementing a parking benefit district, I can't really go out and police the street, but by implementing a parking benefit district, we can spend dollars on projects that might help reduce the crime in the form of security guards, in the form of lighting, in the form of whatever. What was your experience with safety when parking meters were discussed and implemented?
Well, you hopefully are seeing, and by the way, when we put meters in, we were much smaller than the profile that I just discussed. So, if you're looking apples to apples, it probably is much closer than that you might think at the moment. When the meters went in, we were seeing far more turnover at the meters. So, in some ways that might be a double-edged sword. We're seeing more traffic at the curb line, so there are more eyes on the street. If there are more people, that may encourage, panhandlers who think that there's more traffic. But one of the things that Old Pasadena did was take a look at the perception of safety versus the reality of safety. And we were actually seeing, far less incidents downtown than we were seeing in the city as a whole. We were seeing far less incidents downtown that we were seeing than were being reported in neighboring downtowns. So, there were some things for us to talk about. And the combination of having more pedestrian activity at the curb, as well as then within a fairly short period of time being able to generate streetscapes projects that created a more pleasant environment aesthetically, made the while the perception of safety was very skewed to begin with, it helped kind of bridge the people's perception of safety and what was actually happening, because it really wasn't all that safe. And unless you're seeing serious incidents, I would kind of think that the perception is worse than the reality in downtown Dover as well.
Do you charge? What are the hours that you charge, Steve?
That has morphed over the years as well, based on some particular needs. We start at 11 a.m. That gave shop owners a couple of hours in the morning if they needed to, pull up and make deliveries or get things out of their store to the post office or whatever that might be. It also gave residents who might be stopping in for quick coffee or something first thing in the morning a little bit of time as well. So we started 11. That conversation is ongoing of whether we should retain those hours at this point in time. And I will say there are a lot of people at 9 o'clock in the morning that I see putting money in the meter. They just don't realize it's free until 11. And we ran until 9 p.m. And then as we saw a few later night establishments, we lengthened that to 11 p.m. Now, with in the last 5 years, with a large influx of residents, we have shifted that to even later. It's now at 2 a.m. Because while we had garages that were closer to the late night establishments, the street parking was free and you had to pay in the garage. So people were parking farther out, but for free, and then intoxicated, walking back to their cars and disturbing residents. So it's now 11 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Intoxicated, walking to their cars so they can get in their cars and drive
and drive away. Yes.
All right, I'm not going to monopolize the conversation. You've answered my two biggest questions. I'm going to open up the floor and let everybody pick on you. You're in the hot seat. I'm sorry to do this to you, but thank you so much.
I know, it's happy to share our experience.
for volunteering. And so anybody have any questions for Steve? Jed?
I just have one quick question, Steve. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. As we started developing this thing, Old Pasadena was absolutely the model that we looked to. So I appreciate the opportunity to hear from you directly. I think it's very exciting, and I think it's a great opportunity of taking a different spin with and reinvesting those dollars back in the neighborhood. But one of the questions we've gotten from folks is, can you really compare Old Pasadena to Dover, Delaware? And one of the questions has been around the median income. Do you know offhand what the median income from your base is?
Well, and again, I would say it was quite a bit different, some years ago when the meters went in. And I don't know offhand what it was in the mid 90s, but it is well over 100,000 here now. But that is considerably different than it was. And it depends on what specific area of Old Pasadena or of Pasadena you're looking at as well. There are specific neighborhoods where median income is probably tipping 7 figures. We have neighborhoods where it probably doesn't break 50,000. There's a wide disparity within the city as well, and it certainly would have been much lower in the mid 90s when they originally went in. We're also drawing from a regional audience, so I apologize. I don't know the specifics for downtown Dover and what your reach may be in the way of consumer base. But Old Pasadena, because it is a historic downtown, originally went up in the late 1800s. And so, we have architectural draw and things like that. And it was a very early example of sort of outdoor lifestyle center, but in an authentic downtown. So we did have a pretty wide draw and consumer base that spanned pretty significant income levels.
Great, thank you, Steve.
I would say that we're similar in that we're the capital of the very first state in the union, and so we have architecture stemming back in the 1700s, frankly, in the downtown area, and we do have several. It's a tourist attraction. So, Steve, you've got your hand up. Steve Ottinger.
There we go. So just quickly, I operate with the transit in Delaware. Obviously, California is significantly different in density and whatnot, and transit will vary for every area. But I just wanted to get your take on what Pasadena Transit has done for your city and how it might incorporate with some of the things that you've done parking-wise compared to just trying to move people in and out.
Yeah, we partner pretty consistently with the city on a lot of projects. While we are 10 minutes away from downtown Los Angeles, and so we do have some benefit of a large metropolis. We're not that big of a city in and of ourselves. We're not quite 150,000 residents. So our city municipality is very accessible and a great partner to us. So, at one end of our main strip is a freeway entrance. At the other end is a different freeway entrance. On the north end is a third freeway entrance. So we do see a significant amount of traffic through the district. It's through traffic. It's not just destination traffic to us. So the management of that level of traffic, our center is basically the corner of Main and Main. Managing that in a way that gets people through to freeway destination or other areas of the city, as well as getting them around Old Pasadena, requires some handiwork, and it's something that the city is looking at all the time. Over the weekend, for instance, I got a phone call from a resident who said, I don't know what they're doing, but they've got a lane closed and it's backed up for 3 blocks. Even though it was a Saturday, I could make a phone call to transportation. They could pull up on camera what was going on and address the timing. So, we work with them really closely on quite a number of projects. Most recently through COVID, they were very helpful in putting barriers up in the street. So we took some parking spaces to allow restaurants to come out in the street for dining. And that required a lot of coordination between Public Works and transportation, what it was going to take to make sure those folks are safe while they're out on the street dining, and what that means in the way of cost and lost revenue. So it took a lot of city departments to make that happen. But they're constantly looking at how to better manage the traffic levels. The city currently is in the middle of a transportation and parking strategic plan, sort of re-looking at the relationship between on-street and off-street parking, and the traffic levels that we're seeing with additional development that comes online later this year. So I'm not sure if that completely answered your question. If there's follow-up, I'm happy to.
Honestly, that was a good wide scope, and I think it's definitely helpful for the committee.
Great.
Thank you, Ottinger. Deb Grinstead and then Cody.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. My question, I do firmly believe that part of the problem downtown Dover is that the perception, just like you said of Pasadena, the perception of the crime is worse than the actual crime itself. How, and I may have missed it, but how did you work through that perception? Like, how did you get around that perception of your crime not being as bad as what people felt it was?
Yeah, well, I mean, to start with, we just started pulling the statistics of what the actual incident levels were downtown, what those were, and the police, I would assume, is fairly similar in Dover. The police makes that fairly easy for us. Every month they put out a report based on area of the city of what the incidents are and how many have occurred. So we could compare that to the rest of the city. We could compare it to the year previous. We could compare it with information put out by other cities of how we were comparing to our neighbors. And that helped considerably. Also, the streetscapes projects that we were putting in place, even before those things were purchased and installed, and that included a specific type of bus bench, a specific type of trash can that was put out on the street with branding on it, the historic looking street lamps where those had disappeared, replanting a lot of street trees, putting in new tree grates. The conversation about that happening, showing renderings, showing examples, that got people talking about something else. And all of a sudden, it was a resurgence downtown. Not really much had changed yet, but it pivoted the conversation somewhat. And obviously, when those things went in place, we had some traffic of folks just coming down to see it. Now I think with the added benefit of social media, it becomes less expensive to get that message out to folks. And if you don't have Facebook, which is kind of moving a little bit into older territory in the world of social media, but still very valuable. And Instagram, both of those we have found really invaluable in getting messages out to our folks, and it allows them to engage. While an ad is in the newspaper may deliver a message, it's kind of it's static. I mean, there's not, you can't respond to that. You can't interact with it. And a lot of what we're seeing on Instagram now, when we have things to address, is people's ability to respond to that and have a conversation amongst themselves attached to that. And we're getting a lot of support. If for instance, we did recently see something connected to a discussion of parking happening at our city council. And immediately the reaction was negative, but we were seeing residents from downtown, business owners join that conversation and be able to speak to some of the facts that were contrary to what was being said. So you actually can start getting your own stakeholders to support that in live conversation happening on social media. So that has, not at the time it didn't, but now it certainly is a big benefit for us.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Steve. All right, Cody, you're up.
So two very quick questions. So again, thank you very much for your insight. So this is going to gear more towards the beginning of when you first implemented. So my first question is, do you guys offer any free time? So I know one of the conversations we had was currently one of the biggest things that are brought up is just enforcement. If people would just enforce, if they would just enforce the ticketing, enforce the 2-hour parking, that would free up a lot of those issues. I guarantee you stick a couple tickets on somebody who lives down here and abuses the 2-hour rule, all of a sudden that car ain't gonna be there for very long. Right? So do you offer, or did you in the beginning offer any sort of free time either for the merchants to be able to service their customers in a, kind of expedited kind of situation? And then the second part of the question was, how do you find the balance between helping grow the businesses downtown as far as traffic, right? Like having people want to come downtown for like events and such, right? Like just as an example, and also bringing in that revenue, because it can't all be one and it can't all be the other. We can't make it so all about, the people coming down that now we have no money to do the streetscape projects you mentioned, but we can't be so all about the revenue that we forget that the original point is to bring and drive traffic downtown, right? Get people downtown. So for example, like when you guys have when you guys have big events, when we, block off, our Lockerman Street, for example, and we're doing these big events, and we want people to come downtown. We want to give them an incentive to do so. And even though there's parking meters, it's free during this event, right? How do you kind of find that balance between those two things, the revenue for the streetscapes, but also the convenience in the beginning? Because of course, once we've gotten to that point where traffic's coming downtown all the time, there is a benefit to not just the revenue, but the turnover. Whereas in the beginning, a lot of us business owners are concerned, that it's going to deter people. So how did you find that balance?
Well, in the beginning, I had mentioned it's free till 11 a.m. and that's still in place so that shop owners can come in and do whatever they may need to do specific to their business, making a delivery, picking things up. It gives people a time in the morning to be able to stop in and do a couple of quick things before the meter revenue starts. And we had some holidays that were free. I will tell you that's one of the things that has come up recently with City Council is, holidays are some of the busiest days down there. Why is that the day we don't care what happens at the meter? It doesn't make any sense. So, those are the kinds of things that we're looking at the moment, but holidays were free to try and encourage folks to come down. They were not free during events, I will say. So the meters continued to operate as normal. We have a couple of parking garages that are also within our downtown area. So it's a couple of blocks walk to wherever you might be going. And that is less expensive. So if you're going to be here for a while, or you care about what you're going to spend on parking, then go into the parking garage because that is the less expensive way to go. Parking on the street is at a premium. So that was how we were trying to manage the parking and offer something that was a little bit less expensive. I do totally agree with you on the enforcement. I have had 5, I was thinking about this last night, I've had 5 city parking managers in the time that I've been with the PBID. And it's kind of run the gamut. I've had folks that were all about how many tickets can we write per hour. And if you can write 7, then I want you to write 10. And how that has shifted in the last 5 years or so. And that's always something that we have, we've combated. That's not the idea. So we have a parking manager now who understands, or he's very quick to say, my job is to see how many wallets I can get into your store. It's not about sending people away. It's about the turnover. It's about making sure that the parking is an amenity to what the stores need. So, there are some spaces here and there that are 15 minutes only. That might be near the coffee shop. There are some spaces that have a little bit longer time frame because it's near a few hair salons, and folks aren't in and out of there in a half an hour. They're going to be there a little bit longer. So the needs continue to shift even all this time after we've put them in. And I will say Tempe, Arizona. The woman who runs the PBIT in Tempe, Arizona is really, really good at what she does. And they, a number of years ago, even took over the parking enforcement for the city. So they oversee the management of all of the parking garages, all of the on-street parking, and the parking enforcement for Tempe. And they have put some really wonderful programs in place. Their system will recognize if a parking enforcement officer is putting in the license plate number, the system will recognize if this is the first time that you've ever gotten a ticket downtown, and they will actually print up a little warning. So, hey, just so you overstayed your time. If you're going to be next time, you might want to consider parking in a garage, which is easier so giving them a nice, friendly message. When they actually print a ticket, it has a little coupon on the back to go get 25% off of coffee or 10% off of this. So, I realize when you're paying a $40 ticket, maybe 20% off a cup of coffee isn't your biggest concern. But, they're trying to find some way to make it a little bit nicer or to bring them back, because that is your last impression. So, you could be here for 2 hours. You could have the best lunch you've had in a year, the best experience with a bunch of little mom and pop shops that are unique and you're not going to find them anywhere else. And then you get back to your car and you've got a ticket, and that is what you're going to tell all your friends about. So it does require a deft hand, particularly in the beginning of how you're handling that. We also had the benefit of having a safety guide team. So they're ambassadors who are out on the street. Anytime we change anything with parking, it is all hands on deck, out on the street, making sure they're engaging with customers so that those folks know what the changes are. We, a couple of years ago, converted from single head meters to multi-space meters. So there's one meter for the entire block. And there's convenience to that because they can take credit cards, but it's a whole new thing to navigate. And we want to make sure that people understand that and are doing it correctly and are not confused and troubled. So we had folks out for the first month just helping people with how they work the meters. So there is a lot of customer service involved.
Thank you, Cody, for those questions. I'm going to go to Diane, then I'm going to go to Jed, then I'm going to go to Tom Smith.
Steve, I have a question about phasing the approach. Did you phase in the approach when the parking when you started it years ago? Did you do a portion? And also, could you talk a bit about the comprehensive nature of your program? It's not just meters.
Yeah, we are a little bit like a main street downtown. I mean, we're 22 blocks, but particularly when the meters were going in, it was just that main boulevard that got meters, and that's really where all the activity was happening. We were trying to grow the arms and legs of the district and the side streets, but they weren't quite there yet. So we put in, it ended up being about 4 blocks length of our main boulevard. And then as the district was growing, we added more to that. Now we are all 22 blocks. And the program is tied to, as I had mentioned a little bit ago, to the parking garages, so that if people are hesitant to I will say in the parking garages, the first 90 minutes is free. That is something that we still have conversations with the city about every couple of years, and we're having that conversation again now. But it's something that is recognized at some of our competition, so we feel it's important to have that, and it doesn't require a validation. It's just automatically the first 90 minutes is free. So if you're concerned about the cost, you can go into the parking garages. You can stop and get lunch and maybe stop at a store within that 90 minutes and still be able to get out for free. About half of our transactions are under 90 minutes. We facilitate about 2.5 million transactions a year through those parking garages. The number of transactions to the number of spaces make them some of the busiest garages in Los Angeles. So that's kind of a whole nother tale. But the meter pricing and the timing and the garage pricing and timing were devised to work together and provide both options. It still could be relatively cheap, or you could go to convenience and pay a little bit more.
Jed.
Thanks, Todd. Mine's probably less of a question for Steve and more of a comment, reaction to some of your earlier comments. One of the things that was done, I think, very thoughtfully on the part of Downtown Dover Partnership and the Parking Committee was that sensitivity to the mission of the partnership is really to the merchants, to the economic development and the business of downtown. Therefore, the way this program is being approached in Dover is one that the partnership is really the one leading it. The partnership would have the flexibility of being able to, have that soft touch, as you mentioned, in Tempe, Arizona, of being able to have, a policy on warnings and being able to have a policy on grace period or events or whatever they choose to do. So it's kind of an interesting. It struck me your comments were very interesting relative to the approach that the partnership is taking, and Colonial Parking working with the partnership, taking our direction from the partnership and the management. I think it speaks well to the approach that the path that we're headed down in trying to implement a program that is really sensitive to the businesses, to the merchants, and customer friendly, to trying to help facilitate downtown, not to grab as much parking revenue or as much enforcement revenue as we can.
Yeah, I think there are a couple. Obviously, you do want to generate revenue for the benefits, but it has to be not just a money grab, but something that's there to help grow the revenue of the businesses as well. I will say, one of the things that we did early on to make sure that was recognized. There is a sticker on all of the meter heads that specifically says, your money is going to fund streetscapes projects, street trees. It says on the meter, so that when someone is putting money in the meter, they realize that part of what they're doing is supporting the businesses downtown. And that environment. It's not going into some black hole general fund that the city council can spend on whatever they want. And the accusations are usually far more egregious than the reality. But it was a nice recognition of what their money was going to fund. And I will say, something else for you to think about is the difference between parking revenue and parking enforcement revenue. In our case, those are two pools of money. So the parking meter revenue goes into the fund for, and there's an old Pasadena Parking Commission, and that is who funds specific projects. The parking enforcement revenue goes to the general fund, which is why we spend a great deal of time talking to the city about, the enforcement dollars generated is not the ultimate goal. You're just trying to maintain turnover and adherence to policy is the main goal, because the parking enforcement revenue exceeds the parking meter revenue.
Okay, we're going to go Tom Smith, Deb Greenstead, and then Ralph Taylor, and we're going to cut off. Steve's got to leave us at 1 o'clock. So we only have 12 minutes, so try and do it as efficiently as possible. Tom, you're up.
Yes, thanks for joining our meeting, Steve. It's been very beneficial. I had a question. You mentioned ambassadors on the street. Are these your information people, eyes and ears on the street, and they're paid with the revenue from the parking? Is that correct?
They are our eyes and ears on the street. They write property condition reports, safety reports, interacting with our customers for directions, pretty much anything that anyone needs. Those are paid through the PBID. Our organization is a property-based business improvement district, so each property they vote every so many years to continue paying a property tax assessment that goes into a pool for the organization, and with that we pay for higher levels of cleaning, and we pay for the ambassadors. Those are and events. There are a number of things that come out of that, but the ambassador guides are one of the expenditures that come out of that. When that first started, I think there were 4 ambassadors total. That is now in the mid-20s. I think we're at 27, 28. And the cost has risen significantly as well, along with the revenue generated in the area and the traffic. So it's paid through PBID dollars. You certainly could have that conversation and maybe decide that that's something that's important, and you wanted to have that funded out of the monies. We chose to just keep that strictly streetscapes and beautification.
Thank you.
Alan or Deb?
Yeah, it's Alan. Again, thank you for taking your time out this morning, or I guess your morning or afternoon. Do you have any type of permit parking for residents and business owners?
We do not have permit parking on the street. We have monthly parking available in the parking garages. So if you work in the area or you're a resident in the area, the garages are open 24/7, and that creates a lower cost way for you to access parking. The city does have overnight parking permits for residents in other areas of the city. There's no parking on the city streets between 2 and 6 a.m. So that does require a permit if you're parking overnight. We have a number of delivery zones that are all day long. So delivery trucks or shop owners can utilize those as long as it's for loading, unloading purposes. But we don't have permits at the meter.
Councilman Taylor, you're up. And you left. I don't see you. All right. Does anybody else have anything to ask or comment on with Mr. Steve Mulheim? Going once, going twice, and that's all the chances you get.
Sorry.
Cody.
Just very briefly, if you could explain, if there was like one thing that you would say you saw the quickest return on your investment of like time and resources and everything else, if there was one thing where in the very beginning you could say we saw that this helped us catapult the conversation from being controversial to being an easier discussion to have, right? Both with residents, business owners, the people trying to put this together. What would be that thing that you say would be worth a lot of initial time and effort in the beginning?
Keeping the money within the district for projects. That completely turned the corner on the conversation of business owners seeing the benefit, and residents seeing the benefit as well, because it ultimately was going to improve their downtown. Yeah. So if I know, after the fact, people think of questions. Diane has my email if something comes up, and I'm happy to engage questions later if they come up. And I'm happy to get information to Diane if you have an interest in talking to Kate at Tempe. That might be helpful to you as well. Wish you best of luck. I know more questions will come up, so I'm.
You know what? One more real quick, Steve, if you have a couple more minutes, and it's sort of the flip side of the coin from what Cody asked. One of the biggest resistance that we're hearing, or concerns we're hearing from the merchants is, if we charge anything, nobody's going to come downtown. The cost of parking, even at $1 an hour, is going to be enough of a deterrent. They'll never come downtown. They'll never come to my shop. We're going to drive them out to the suburban malls and all of that. How do you react to that notion?
Well, if you're driving farther out, I don't know the price of gas in downtown Dover, but in California, it's fairly pricey. You're probably going to spend more than that dollar getting where you want to go. A lot of the parking garages at our competitive malls do have a price attached to it. They're not completely free, so you don't really end up saving any money, I don't think, in the long run. And if a dollar is going to make all the difference in where you're going, I'm not sure that that's necessarily the customer you're most trying to get downtown anyway. Although I will say, I worked for a museum previous to this. I had one of my board of directors was worth approximately $2 billion. There was nothing he hated more than spending $1 on parking. So that happens as well. But I think, if you look at the value of your time in driving farther out, the cost of driving farther out, it's still a great value to be downtown for a couple of dollars. And particularly in this instance, you're putting a couple of dollars into a fund that is going to make big changes to your downtown. And that is something I think that is very marketable.
Great. Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Steve, I can't tell you how invaluable your volunteering to be here with us has been today to help answer some of these questions from a level of experience and wisdom. So I just thank you. We are indebted to you. Thank you so much for sharing your time and being
you're welcome.
Being willing to even further engage with us in the future should we need you. So with that, we will respect your time and know that you have to go to bigger and better things than us. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a full day of parking over here. So thanks much. Good luck. Take care. And if you need anything, I'm happy to jump in to see if we can help.
All right.
Thanks,
With that, guys, if anybody has any general comments, discussion points, questions, not for Steve because he's now officially gone. We do have some new faces here. We had a letter that came in, and I think we should address that letter. Diane, can you address that? Because I specifically see somebody on this call that was named in that letter and may wish to address that or not.
Yeah, what I actually have in front of me, I can find the letter. Are you talking about Cameron's letter?
No, I'm not talking about Cameron's letter. I'm talking about Diana's letter because she's not on the call. And so I think because she's not here to speak to that letter, I think we should acknowledge that letter.
Okay, so if we were to read the letter, it would take 10 minutes. And so I had actually done some bullet points to respond to the concerns in her letter. So in the interest of time, I thought I'd just address it that way. First thought, survey. She'd like to have a survey go out, as we mentioned earlier. There will be a survey. In addition, we've had conversations and email letters and input from merchants. And just as a recollection, Sam Chick did bring his list of merchant responses at the first meeting. She asked about test meters. Is it possible to put in a few test meters and see how they work? I'm not sure that test meters is the likely answer. I think a phased approach may be a good way for Dover to go. That's my opinion, something we've discussed and can discuss a little further. The payback time, she was curious how much time will it take to pay back the cost of the infrastructure, the putting in meters or any other kinds of parking equipment required. And that really depends on the cost of the infrastructure. If it's phased in, it will be less than if it's all put in at once. It'll depend on the cost structure. What does a meter cost? That will, attest to how much money comes in. And I'm sure Jed will have a few comments on that as well. So I'll continue on the response and then maybe just jump in on any of these, Jed, that you have responses to. Residents, her question was about residents and how will they fare in this system. Again, we haven't made any decisions, but something that we have discussed is continuing to offer free parking overnight. So from whatever time it is, 5, 6, 7 o'clock until 8, 9, 7, or whatever in the morning. We've discussed pretty seriously having that overnight time free on the streets. Will there be coin-only technology? And the answer is a definite resounding no. There will be coin option and there'll be smart technology apps. So for whatever it is you need to pay, whatever the process looks like, that will be covered in this. Old Pasadena, not necessarily comparable in size and population. The thought is that the concept of a parking benefit district where funds go back into the downtown for the benefit of the downtown is a concept that we believe is transferable. And why shouldn't Dover, the first state, be the first state and a best practice in the country? Addressing safety in general, she's concerned about safety issues, the perception, the actuality, one and the same. It's commensurate with parking. We cannot look at parking without looking at safety. And so that is a common united conversation that in part we will address perhaps with some of the revenue from parking, but also in concert with the City of Dover Police Department and their community policing unit. We have to remember that the community policing officers are not dedicated in Dover just to downtown. They are officers throughout, but they are often dedicated for times to downtown. I will say that there is a desire for the City of Dover Police Department to have a second police academy, but that requires council approval to budget funds for it. That's a conversation that is right now. It's going to come up again on Monday night's council meeting. So if anyone would like to see more community policing, I recommend you contact your councilman, write a letter, ring their phone, and let them know that you support the additional police academy, because that will then fund the full amount of officers up to about 108 for the city, which hasn't been done in years, and that will in turn make a full community policing unit of 10. She recommends a couple of articles, some positive, some negative. I didn't actually read them to this point, but we will take a look at those and see what we can garner from those. That's it, Todd.
No, that's not it, because I read the same letter and I want to specifically mention the Association of Realtors comments in her letter.
Good.
So if you would summarize, because I'm not looking at the letter, but if you would summarize what her comments are concerning the Delaware Association of Realtors and specifically Bo Zebley, please.
Okay, let Jed give his responses and I will find the letter. I only have the responses in front of me.
Actually, I've got the letter in front of me too.
Okay.
So I will give you a quick response. So relative to the payback on investment and that element of it, a lot of moving parts. We have developed a couple of financial models of what this thing looks like based on the full footprint, based on just Lockerman Street. When you shrink the footprint, you shrink the investment, but you also shrink the revenue. So it's not necessarily one for one and scalable in that way. But so we're going through the different financial models and whatever. And I think we need to fine tune it a little bit more before we start sharing it publicly. But, I think there is a lot of moving parts that need to be determined. But to Diana's comments in the letter, the expectation is that the system would be funded in a 5-6 year type of window, depending on how big the footprint is. During that time period, the expectation is that there probably would be some net proceeds still coming to the partnership that can be reinvested. Depending upon the size of the footprint will determine how big those numbers are, but I think there would still be some revenue. So it's not that it would generate $0 during that period with which the equipment gets paid back. But then once the equipment is fully paid back, then obviously there's a much bigger revenue generation of net income coming into the partnership. So as we answer some of the questions and move a little more down the path on what is the program and development of the program, we can better answer some of the questions about what does the financial look like. But generally, those are some of the parameters that are built into it. To Todd's comment, specifically from Diana's letter, I have talked to Bo Zebley, President, Delaware Association of Realtors. He also has a lot of concerns with both residential and commercial users. If we are serious about making an informed decision, I think he should be included in future meetings to provide another professional viewpoint.
So I specifically invited Bo, and Bo has a couple of comments he'd like to make.
Yeah, thanks, Todd.
So hold on, Bo. In other words, I asked Bo to join us specifically because Diana requested it. Go ahead, Bo.
Okay. So first thing I want to tell you is that the Kent County Association of Realtors and the Delaware Association of Realtors has no official position on parking meters downtown Dover. The other thing is, I believe, as somebody who goes downtown to eat and shop, because shopping local is important to myself and my family, but I think that parking meters would free up space and allow merchants to get even more opportunities. So personally, I am in favor of them, but professionally, we do not have a position. So I just wanted to clear the record for that.
Thank you, Bo.
Yep.
I think it's important because Amanda from the Dover Post and the News Journal is present with us today. Does anybody else have any comments? Cameron, I know you submitted something in writing. Would you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts verbally so that Amanda has the opportunity to hear this?
And I actually have that.
Yeah, Todd, and
Your signal or somebody's signal is challenging. You're locked up on my screen. Can anybody else hear him?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So Todd, I'm going to start with, it's very sad to see 33 West go. Brandon's been talking about closing that location for a long period of time, off the record. So I don't think that somebody that's going to go to 33 West for dinner, that's going to spend $130 to $150, have a bottle of wine, is worried about $1. Okay. So secondly, our retail shop downtown, Lurie's store, people come in and pay $70 for one shirt. Those people are not concerned about $1. The ones that might be deterred by the $1 probably were going to be in the clearance rack, which is not a source of income for us to begin with. We're liquidating merchandise that's distressed. There are multiple merchants downtown that are that abuse the ability to just serve parking spaces all day, and they don't have the wherewithal to understand that them moving their Jeep from space to space, all it's doing is covering up parking spaces that they could just, be in one of the lots. And I have serious ADHD today. But To summarize, I'm in favor of it because if we can generate even a small amount of revenue to help supplement community savers that are also keeping the meters, they're helping little old ladies cross the street, they're picking up a soda bottle that's laying on the sidewalk, and we can generate that revenue from what Jed's organization is trying to do. It says my phone's unstable again, so I'm 100% in favor.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Does anybody else wish to share any thoughts, comments? Diane?
I appreciated Steve's comment about customers coming downtown, and just want to mention that we have to remember that downtown is a limited space. It's not a mall. It's not an expandable shopping center. It is unique spaces. It is a limited amount of space, and we are creating experiences for people. There's a reason to want to be in downtown. And so there is value in coming to downtown and the unique family-owned shops that are there. People will pay for an experience that is a good one.
Thank you, Diane. Debbie? Deb Grinstead, you have the floor. I think it's Debbie.
I'm sorry, I muted myself, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Loud and clear.
so I'm 100% in favor of the parking meters. I agree with Cameron. I think that it's just a benefit. You know, my plan in the beginning is to kind of pay for people's parking when they come in, and just, it's worth $1 to me to get somebody to come downtown. And if that's what it takes, then I'll do it in the beginning. Heck, if I have to keep doing it, I'll do it. But I also think with saying that, we need to get and work on developing downtown so that we can get people and make it a place where people with higher incomes want to come and spend more money than just a couple dollars in my store and a restaurant. We need to get, and I know COVID is an issue, but we need to get those types of things in development. And hopefully by raising money with the parking, we can do things like that. So I really just believe that it's nothing but a positive as far as bringing the meters in. That's kind of where I stand.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Debbie. And Debbie, just as a reminder, Debbie is one of the co-owners of Sozo Concepts down on Lockerman Street. So she's speaking from, she owns a business down here, and she's speaking from that perspective. Chris Rohrbacher.
Yes, being a property owner downtown and a business owner for the last 42 years, I think it's really important to come up with a comprehensive plan that I am able to get permits for my people in the apartments. I'm able to work the program on the streets for the commercial units I have. And one idea I came up with, and I've seen it elsewhere, we keep talking about the turnover of the spaces out front, and we have to keep in mind X amount of dollars does need to be generated. Perhaps we could do something like maybe have a space or two that's 20-minute free parking all the time, but it's only 20 minutes. It will constantly be turning over. People can come in, run into a store, and get out. The other idea is possibly to have a few spaces that are 30 minutes pay, but they're only 30 minutes, and you can't keep recycling your credit card and keep the spot tied up. Maybe you do that with 2 or 4 spaces to keep the turnover for the stores. But I think it's very important to come up with a comprehensive plan for parking for Dover to move on.
Thank you, Chris. And we have heard those comments multiple times, and we have those in consideration as Jed continues to adjust his plan. All those comments have been taken into consideration, and I can assure you that they are part of the discussion. Now, Cody, I think you wanted to speak.
I was just going to say, this meeting is fire. It has been so much more optimistic. It's been so much more positive. So many more solutions put on the table. We're not just a bunch of people drumming up a bunch of, issues and not having anything to say on how to fix it. So I just got to say, I'm so much more encouraged with this meeting than any of the other ones. The 15, 20-minute parking joint, the 30-minute paid parking, that's fire. The other young lady saying, hey, it's worth it for me to say, all right, cool, I'll take $1 off your $100, piercing jewelry total, just to say, all right, cool, next time you're not going to be so, you're not leaving with that experience of, oh, I had to pay $1 for parking. And then what Mr. Cameron said was, just phenomenal. I just have to say, I'm just so encouraged by today's meeting. And I think that anybody that doesn't leave this meeting realizing that the first priority is genuinely the merchants and the people that live here, then I don't know what else we can say to make you feel better, because everything about today has been about us and not about just a bunch of money. So
thank you so much, Cody. And all of you, frankly, that feel this way. If anybody doesn't feel this way, please speak up. But for those of you that do, please carry this message to your neighbors, because this meeting has been incredible. And thank you, Cody. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? Noel, do you have anything you want to say? I'm going to leave this to the merchant staff.
No, just real quick, in the conversation we had previously in my office, we're here to support it. I think it's a great idea because of where we are physically. You might say we have a nice view of both Lockerman and Bradford, and we know the importance of getting something in place that's going to help the merchants and help the flow of people coming downtown.
Thank you, Noel. Joe Petrosky has been a big player in downtown and an investor. Well, he just left. He knew I was getting ready to call on him. Tom, are you around? Did you have any comments based on today's meeting? Mouthful?
Well, I had the only sale of the day, so I was kind of busy. No, this meeting, of course, is very, very positive. I think we're certainly moving in the right direction. Obviously, we have to be careful of our businesses right now because of COVID, but better things are coming. And I think it's very important that we continue this planning process and launch it when it's time to launch it.
Last person would be Alan. Do you have anything that you wanted to say?
No, I think Deb spoke for us. We're good.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to let Jed, I'm going to recognize you, and I'm going to recognize Tina and Diane too. But Amanda, I just want you to make sure that you've heard these things that came out today in today's meeting, and hopefully that will be portrayed in the press. Jed, go ahead.
Well, one more element that is exciting for us too in this is to have Steve Ottinger on this meeting as well, because it's not just about parking, it is about transit, and it is about the connectivity of downtown Dover. There are other parking assets that are not right on Lockerman or within a block of Lockerman that could be unleashed, and with the right transit solution could help make downtown Dover more productive and work better from a transportation mobility perspective. So having DTC now in the conversation, it's great. This has been a good meeting, and I think a lot of great input.
Thank you, Jed. Tina, you had your hand up.
And this is in response to Chris, and then just feedback for Jed. So in the summer, for the past several years, the bump out there in front of the Lockerman Plaza, we've taken those 4 or 5 spaces and we've converted them into temporary parking for 15 minutes to 20 minutes for people to come and pick up produce or something real quick and get back in their car. And it's really worked, especially for young moms who wanted to run in and grab something and didn't want to be parking, lugging a stroller out and all that. And then along on Minor Street Alley, we have another one, Chris will remember this, that we did a 15-minute loading and unloading space there in the Minor Street Alley. And those have been very successful, those 2 temporary solutions where we left those particular spaces.
So in other words, we do that now, and we plan to do that, and if it's part of the plan to do in the future as well. Diane, I'm going to put you behind Steve. I'm going to let Steve Ottinger make a comment because he's got his hand up.
I don't have a question or comment.
Okay. Steve?
I just wanted to follow up to Jed's point, and I think it was really interesting that when he was talking, transit is not just the only solution. It doesn't necessarily have to be the bus. And while I do the bus stuff, there's more to transportation than just that. So whether it's a block party or trying to organize some kind of a barrier in a certain area because they're having outreach or things, part of this is also about trying to get people comfortable with the downtown area, to bring people back to the downtown, to make sure that they're comfortable in the area overall, because I think that's going to help the long-term effects in trying to get people, knowing what's downtown, comfortable with coming downtown, and just being a long-term betterment for the city overall.
Thank you for your comments, Steve. I'm going to wrap this meeting up, and I'm going to mention that there was some activity at the City of Dover's Planning Commission meeting last night. There was a rezoning that was approved for from industrial to commercial use for a restaurant. And I happen to know that restaurant is in the form of a beer garden over within the downtown development district on Northwest Street. So I think with that and with the information we've heard from 5 or 6 different businesses that plan to open before the end of 2021, we are going to see some incredible change downtown. And just if we keep this momentum the way we're going, guys, it's incredible. Thank you all for your time. I know your time is valuable. We wanted to keep this meeting to 1 o'clock, but we had a special guest that was just invaluable to us. And so thank you all for your time, your comments today. Hopefully they get shared amongst our patrons and our neighbors, because it is all about the success of the downtown merchants and the beauty of what we have here, this little gem. So, motion to adjourn. May I have one?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? Chris seconded it from behind his mute signal. All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Later, everybody.